How does a quarterback with some of the best stats in the entire country, a player who led a high-profile program with ice in his veins, suddenly become toxic right before the NFL draft? How do you go from being a top prospect to being labeled as having the worst interview ever, all based on rumors and whispers? This is the story of Shedeur Sanders, and it's a story about more than just football. It's about how a narrative can be built, how careers can be threatened by unseen forces, and how a secret interview tape held by the New York Giants became the key to a mystery that rocked the entire draft. But what's even crazier is how Shedeur's undeniable talent is now making all of those critics look completely foolish. The whole thing started subtly, like it always does. In the months leading up to the draft, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders was mostly positive. He was a proven leader with impressive numbers. But then, the whispers began. Vague reports started to surface about his attitude or his ego. They were the kind of untraceable rumors that are easy to start and almost impossible to disprove, slowly chipping away at his public image before the real storm hit. And the epicenter of that storm was a closed-door meeting with the New York Giants. Almost immediately after that interview, the narrative machine kicked into high gear. Sources from within the Giants organization began leaking to the press that the interview was awkward and disappointing. But notice the language. It was all feeling, no facts. No one could provide a specific quote or a reason for the disappointment. It was just a cloud of negativity, perfectly designed to create suspicion without offering any proof. Now, here's where the story takes a wild turn and starts to feel less like a standard draft evaluation and more like a targeted campaign. Around the same time, new footage surfaced of the Giants' interview with another quarterback, Jackson Dart. That interview was also described as tense, but the Giants had no problem releasing the footage for the public to see. So why release Dart's tape but keep Shedeurs under lock and key? The move was baffling, and it created a vacuum of information that the media was more than happy to fill with their own theories, almost all of them negative towards Sanders. With the public demanding answers, the first major bombshell came from NFL insider Albert Breer. According to his sources, the Giants had shown Shedeur a tape of his own mistakes from college games and asked him to break them down. Breer reported that Shedeur struggled to identify the mistakes, grew frustrated, and the interview went downhill from there. This was the first piece of evidence the public got, but it was still a second-hand account. We were being told a story, not shown the proof. And if Albert Breer lit the match, Colin Cowherd was there to pour gasoline on the fire. In a now infamous segment, Cowherd didn't just criticize the interview, he torched it. He labeled it the worst he had ever seen and dropped a devastating detail that when a team asked Shedeur about a bad play, he allegedly responded with, "You know, maybe I'm not the guy for you." That single, unverified quote became the defining moment of the controversy. It was presented as the ultimate proof of his supposed arrogance and lack of accountability. In a matter of weeks, the narrative was set in stone. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just a quarterback with a few bad interview moments. He was an egoistic player from an entitled family who was too picky about where he wanted to play. Even former NFL MVP Cam Newton weighed in, suggesting Shedeur shies away from real competition. The takedown was complete. The media had successfully painted a picture of a player whose attitude, not his ability, was the real story. But while the media was telling one story, the numbers on the field were screaming a completely different one. If you ignored the noise and just looked at the data, Shedeur wasn't just good, he was elite. He led the pack of top QB prospects with a staggering 74% completion rate. That's miles ahead of Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. He was more accurate, more consistent, and more efficient. And when it came to putting points on the board, he threw 37 touchdowns, proving he could deliver in the most critical moments. The player being described in the media and the player on the field seemed like two entirely different people. Still, narratives are powerful, and the negative press had done its damage. On draft day, Shedeur Sanders slid. Teams that were once considered potential landing spots seemed to shy away. Likely spooked by the media storm, it looked like the campaign against him, intentional or not, had worked. He was eventually drafted by the Cleveland Browns, but he arrived not just as a rookie quarterback, but as a walking controversy, with a cloud of doubt hanging over him. He walked into a quarterback room with established veterans like Joe Flacco and other rookies like Dylan Gabriel. The national media was watching, waiting for the attitude and ego to show up. They were waiting for him to fail, to prove their narrative right. But then, something happened that nobody in the media seemed prepared for. Shedeur started playing football. During the Browns' OTA practices, the whispers of his bad interview started to fade, replaced by the sound of footballs hitting receivers perfectly in stride. He was given the fewest reps of all the quarterbacks, a typical situation for a rookie in his position. But what he did with those reps was anything but typical. While the veterans put up solid but standard practice numbers, Shedeur was surgical. The final stats from one session were so staggering, they seemed like a typo. Joe Flacco went 9 for 14 with 1 touchdown, Dylan Gabriel was 11 of 16 with 2 touchdowns and an interception, and Shedeur Sanders, he went 7 for 9 with 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. With the fewest attempts, he was the most efficient, most productive, and the only one who didn't turn the ball over. He wasn't just competing, he was dominating. And this brings us to the most stunning reversal in this entire saga. Remember Colin Cowherd, the man who called Shedeur's interview the worst ever and helped build the negative narrative? After seeing Shedeur's OTA performance, he did a complete 180. Cowherd went on his show not to walk back his comments, but to blow Shedeur's trumpet, calling him one of the best quarterbacks on the Browns roster and arguing he should be the first-team starter over seasoned veterans. It was the ultimate vindication. The biggest critic had become the biggest believer, all because Shedeur's on-field talent was simply too loud to be silenced by old rumors. This reversal forces us to look back at the original mystery, that secret interview tape. With Shedeur now proving his talent and professionalism on the field, the Giants' refusal to release the footage looks more suspicious than ever. If he was truly as bad as the sources claimed, showing the tape would have justified their decision. The fact that they've kept it hidden, while his performance is silencing all critics, makes you wonder if the tape doesn't show a flawed prospect, but a flawed process. Could it be that the tape actually disproves the narrative? In the end, the story of Shedeur Sanders' journey to the NFL is a powerful lesson in perception versus performance. A calculated narrative, fueled by anonymous sources and amplified by loud media voices, tried to define him. They attacked his character, questioned his heart, and it genuinely hurt his draft stock. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated his talent. His performance on the field is now rewriting his story, turning critics into fans and making the old controversy seem like a distant and perhaps manufactured memory. So what do you think? Was this a coordinated media campaign to deliberately lower his draft stock? Or was it all just a massive misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion? And now that his talent is undeniable, how much does any of that drama even matter? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe, because the truth is always more interesting than the rumors.